Good evening, Sharon.
Hi, James.
You're starting with continuity in the United States when it comes to economic policy. Joe Biden has renominated the chairman of the Federal Reserve.
Yes, and despite pushback from some Democrats, the US president says Jerome Powell will remain at the central bank for a second term. The decision ends weeks of speculation in financial markets and Washington political circles over what's one of the world's most important economic policy posts. Powell, a Republican nominated by former President Donald Trump, is expected to win bipartisan Senate confirmation. 68 of those who voted for him 4 years ago are still in office. Well, the left wing of the president's party had been calling for Powell to be replaced by a candidate like Fed Governor Lyle Brainard, who's today been nominated as vice chair of the central bank's board of governors. Well, speaking at the White House earlier, Biden said he had full confidence in Powell and said stability and independence were needed at the Federal Reserve.
The supply and demand imbalances related to the pandemic.
When our country was hemorrhaging jobs last year and there was panic in our financial markets, Jay's steady and decisive leadership helped to stabilize markets and put our economy on track to a robust recovery. Jay is a believer in the benefits of what economists call maximum employment. That's an economy where companies have to compete to attract workers instead of workers competing with each other for jobs.
Top of Powell's to-do list will be managing the strong US economic rebound, which has seen soaring job growth accompanied by damaging inflation. Powell himself says the Fed will continue to work to prevent rising prices from becoming entrenched.
We know that high inflation takes a toll on families, especially those less able to meet the higher costs of essentials like food, housing, and transportation. We will use our tools both to support the economy and a strong labor market and to prevent higher inflation from becoming entrenched.
In September, it became the first country in the world to use the cryptocurrency as legal tender. And now El Salvador is planning to build a Bitcoin city. It's to be created at the base of a volcano in the southeastern region of La Union. The project will be initially funded by Bitcoin-backed bonds and will be tax-free except for VAT. The city itself will be circular, representing the shape of a large coin. Well, we can hear now from the president of El Salvador, who says geothermal energy generated by the volcano could also be used to power Bitcoin mining.
Because this is a fully ecological city that works and it's energized by a volcano. The only tax that you're going to have in Bitcoin City is the value-added tax, which, normal value-added tax, 10%. Which you would pay for, if you buy a Coke, you pay 10%, and that value-added tax will be used, half of it, to pay the bonds that we're going to issue to build up the city, so it's going to pay for itself, and the other half will be transferred to municipalities, so they clean up their trash, they keep the parks nice, and they keep the city all neat and clean.
Next up, we're taking a look towards Chile, which is heading for a polarized presidential runoff next month. Voters will choose between two anti-establishment candidates from opposite ends of the political spectrum after a campaign that's exposed deep social tensions. The country's economic success has stood out in Latin America and been dubbed the Chilean miracle, with reforms that started in the 1980s. They were overseen by centrist leaders who steered the country into a democracy after Pinochet's dictatorship. Well, a free market economic model and openness to foreign trade and investment brought prosperity and stability, but inequality remains high. In 2019, a small hike in transport fees led to mass nationwide protests, with demonstrators demanding reforms in a range of sectors, including healthcare, education and pensions. The pandemic has hit the country hard, with the local currency dropping around 17% against the dollar since May. That's one of the worst performances among emerging market economies. Time now for a quick check on the markets. European shares ended flat on Monday as Germany's warning of tighter lockdown restrictions overshadowed gains in Telecom Italia following a $12 billion proposal from US fund KKR to take Italy's largest phone group private. There you see London's FTSE 100 was up slightly, while in Paris the CAC 40 was down, as was the DAX in Frankfurt. Over on the US markets, earlier the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq hit record highs after President Biden picked Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell to lead the bank for a second term. The two indices are currently up, while the Dow Jones has fallen slightly. Finally from me, the British Prime Minister has sparked widespread bemusement after appearing to veer off course during a speech he was delivering to prominent members of the business community in the north of England. Instead of talking about how green policies in the UK could help the levelling up process, Boris Johnson made references to visiting Peppa Pig World, a theme park inspired by the popular children's TV character. He was speaking at a conference organised by the Confederation of British Industry.
With Peppa. So it's fantastic. I was a bit hazy what I would find at Peppa Pig World, but I loved it. And Peppa Pig World is very much my kind of place. It has very safe streets, discipline in schools, heavy emphasis on new mass transit systems, I notice, even if they're a bit stereotypical about Daddy Pig.
Well, with that, that's it from me. Back to you, James.
I'm speechless, Sharon. I don't know what to say. I mean, the El Salvadorian president in a baseball cap and Boris Johnson at Peppa Pig, it's all rather peculiar.
Two places we need to visit, the new volcano, Bitcoin City and Peppa Pig World.
Yes, I agree with that. Anyway, quick break for the weather and we'll